Hello and welcome to Rural Talks. In the present scenario, health has been a major concern across globe and lot has changed and will keep on changing during the post-COVID in the health sector. Every crisis creates new opportunities and today to discuss on transforming rural health through technology, let me welcome Mr. Sougat Chatterjee, CEO, Preventive Healthcare of Apollo Hospitals. Sougat has been awarded Marketing Professional of the Year 2018 by ET Now, Asia's top 50 brand leaders in 2017 by CMO Asia, India's 100 most influential marketing leaders in 2016 by World Marketing Congress, a keynote speaker at various forums who has worked across various sectors such as FMCG, OTC, Pharma, healthcare, telecom, and consumer durables. He's an adept in people management, processes, excellence, and productivity enhancement. So not wasting much time, let me welcome Sougat Chatterjee to Rural Talks. Hi, and welcome to Rural Talks, Sougat. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and we had been struggling a lot to get in touch with you and your new assignment. I think that's keeping you really busy. And today, the healthcare has become a burning issue. A lot of changes has happened in the industry. There are a lot of behavioral changes. Social distancing has become a part of the culture now. Telemedicine is a new thing which is coming up. So what are the biggest challenges public and private players face in providing healthcare services in rural India? And what are the ways out?
Sure. So first of all, Ajay, it's always a pleasure interacting with you and always good to see you, both as a professional and also as a personal acquaintance. And first of all, let me credit with the wonderful initiative that you have taken up to portray the strength of rural India, and which I strongly believe is that what the Indian economy will be, or driving force of the Indian economy, that would it be in the next about 15 to 20 years.
Yes.
So that you have taken up this initiative, it speaks a lot and a long way about your visionary thought process at the same point of time. I've been following your program and I've heard of a lot of eminent speakers that you're interacting with, and I always had it in my mind that yes, I would also get a call from you, hoping to be a part of your program at the same time as well.
Pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much. Coming back to the point which you mentioned about the rural condition now. So before I come to that point, let me just give you a synopsis of how the rural section has been with respect to the healthcare. Overall, in the country, we have been trying to get the best bed to a person ratio is 3:1,000, which means for every 1,000 people, we would have at least 3 beds. Where we are right now is a number which is very shocking, and that is 35,000.
Okay.
Right? So therefore, we are way away from the adequate infrastructure required, which would have actually built up a strong healthcare. And this number which I quoted to you is largely from the urban markets or from the tier 1 cities. The tier 2 and the tier 3 are way behind. That's point number 1. Point number 2, of late, since the time the COVID pandemic had broken out, there's been a lot of good work done by both NABH and NABL in certifying a lot of hospitals and pathological laboratories across the country, and to bring them up to the accelerated level so that they are enabled to take care of people, do their tests, so on and so forth. But the challenge here is very different. The challenge is not about they have been working 24/7. They've launched a wonderful new concept called HOPE, that is Hospital Online Performance Enhancement. So a lot of great efforts being taken at the central level. But the problem is we have about 29,000 unstructured and I would say uncovered healthcare units across in our country. 29,000, this is big enough number.
Wow. That's big.
And that 80% of this 29,000 is in the tier 3, and only 20% is in the tier 2. Now, the challenge here is the manpower. Now, today, when I am running a hospital and if I know my NABH people are coming across for a supervision and for inspection at a particular designated date and time, I'm prepared for it, right? But how and what it is when I'm doing my normal day-to-day sequence of my daily processes?
Hmm.
The biggest challenge I face as a hospital owner or as a health check provider is adequate having non-unskilled manpower. And even if I have a skilled manpower, it takes about 4 to 5 months to develop someone's competency to that level. And by the time I am there, somebody else has offered that person a couple of thousands more, and that person has moved on to some other unit. The attrition level at the front line today in the healthcare industry stands at a whooping 35%, and it is only going up. Now, at the same time, there are two scenarios. Scenario one, a small establishment trains the manpower, grooms the manpower. A mid-level establishment takes that manpower with a few amount more. So the small institute suffers. Two, now the small institute aspires to become big, but the small institute cannot afford the amount of a senior level resource of a bigger institute. So the small institute settles down for a mid-level or a junior mid-level resource and makes them their own senior. So as a result, the quality is compromised here and the efficiency is compromised there. So it's a very, very precarious mix of challenges. Now, going forward, the only way this challenge of the manpower, along with the bed crisis, along with the aspect of reachability, the only way it can be mitigated is by the intervention of technology. And thankfully, we have seen enough amount of penetration which has happened with the telecom network infrastructure across the country. We don't have a lot of network at least coverage, barring a few sleepers here and there. Technology will be the only intervention here. And with technology, very many things comes in. One, definitely, as you mentioned very rightly, is the telemedicine. Just to give you an example, at Apollo, we have a Apollo 24/7, which is our telemedicine endeavor. And we have grown in this section roughly about 300 times in the past 3 months. So therefore, there's a lot of need which is there existing. And this is primarily, I'm talking about only to a reach access of tier 1 to some extent of tier 2. We have not yet touched upon the tier 2 and the tier 3 hardcore, where the chunk of the population and the chunk of the need remains. So therefore, such interventions of technology along with telemedicine, along with disposables, along with deliverables, along with distribution of a basic medicational needs at of a quality premium in nature would be the name of the game in the times to come.
But how is it possible? I mean, for the government, so 840 million population living down there, you're sitting in urban places. So how do you find that? What kind of challenges would be there? Urban, I can understand you have a lot of issues, but down there in rural, how do you see that the government and the private, there can be a partnerships together, or something can be developed so that the people down below in the villages, they can be benefited?
You see, there's something which we have been working on a project. It's called Project Kavach, and I will just kind of give you a few leaves from that project that will give us an understanding of how this association will get worked out. Now, this association is not only about a government and the private player. This association involves four stakeholders. One definitely is the state governments, definitely for sure. Two is the player himself, the private player, who is providing the infrastructure and the facilities. Three, we need the local influencer.
Very important, yes.
And four, and most importantly, we need the support of the local pharmacy and the distributors. Because this eventually is going to help and benefit everybody across. Now, the role which each play during this course of time is very critical. The government's responsibility is to make sure that whichsoever parameters and whatsoever processes are being listed down Now, obviously, there are two ways to do it. Either we keep creating the private players, the bigger private players, they keep creating them and working upon their own units in very many tier 2 and the tier 3 places. But that's going to be a long drawn battle. Is even to create a 50-bedded setup, there's a lot of time involved. One. Two, see, there's something which we have been talking to the government also. And that's something which we want the government to make the people understand. At an urban sector and a rural sector, there's something called a cost of bed, which is the maintenance cost only, not the occupancy cost. So there was a survey done by NABH along with WHO in Delhi itself. And it's a very interesting insight. Uh, at least in particular, it will excite you a lot because you really love figures and insights.
Yeah.
Uh, so the study was it costs 8,500 rupees
Hmm.
to maintain one bed at a government hospital.
Wow. Okay. 8,500.
Right. Which the Ministry of Health at the Delhi came back and said that, no, it's not 8,500, it's actually 10,500. They
Okay.
increased it by 2,000 rupees more. So what happens is when somebody walks into a government hospital and walks out after getting treated, they assume that the treatment is free. But the treatment actually is not free. Somebody else has paid for that, right? But we want to make sure that the government also takes up a step in making the people realize that it is also a cost. It is not that it's a free thing altogether. There's a cost behind maintaining that. So even if the government invoices can actually carry that mention of 8,500 rupees of the bed cost without the profits and everything. And if somebody has stayed for 3 days, so it's 25,500 rupees. And after the end of the period, you don't charge for the bill. You're okay with that.
Sagat, is that the figure only for the metro cities or across the country? It's the same.
See, I'll come to the urban part. The reason why I give the metro figure vis-a-vis the urban part was that barring the cost of the land, rest nothing changes between a healthcare setup at urban and a metro level, right? You cannot say that if I am at sitting at Muzaffarnagar, I will compromise upon the doctor's quality. I will compromise upon my disposables. I will compromise upon the ventilator. You cannot do that. You're
Hmm.
dealing at a life here also, dealing at a life there also. So
Hmm.
not much changes between the urban and the rural landscape is concerned when it comes to the quality is concerned. And that's what I was trying to draw you. That quality is very important. So one, we need the government support to help us build up that quality. And even if we take up some unit at a rural level and try to convert that, we will need the government support to enhance that quality level with a few understandings and relaxations and supports from the government level itself. That's point number one. Point number two, we need the local key influences, the local spots of various aspects who speak about health and well-being. We need them primarily to develop a communication which can strongly go and help people make aware about the benefit of taking their life seriously. See, the fact remains, be it at a government, at an urban or be it at a rural level, we take our vehicles every 3 months for a pollution check.
Yes.
We don't take our bodies there to check that whether it's functioning right or wrong.
Yes.
We take it for granted, right? So we need that involvement from the spot level. And why I'm re-emphasizing upon the local level influencers and the local level spots is largely because if today I am a healthcare unit, and if I, no matter how best my communication is and how loud I shout my lungs out, to the other person, they see it as a business idea. They see that you want us in here because you want to make money out of us. But the reality is very different. We
Hmm.
are really concerned. I was questioned a few days back in one of the forums, and I was asked that whether probably, what is the strategy Apple was adopted to minimize the revenue loss.
Hmm.
And I told this one line, right from the very day one, this COVID epidemic broke out. Our chairman, Dr. Pratap Reddy, gave us a one statement. He said, it is not at all, do not strategize anything at all about revenue loss. Strategize only to how to minimize loss of life. So the orientation is very different when we go across and make this communication at the rural level also. And we need the fourth pillar, which is the distribution segment, because local distribution and to make sure that quality products are available. Now, for example, NABL has taken it upon themselves to bring in checks of various devices and medications which is going to a rural sector, to check upon their stockages, to check upon their expiries, to check upon their life which the device or the product is being stored for.
Hmm.
So that's the third support which we need from this distribution sector, to openly come and ensure that, end of the day, they're also dealing with lives. And they're a very critical part in making sure that whatever is being consumed, be it at a pathological laboratory or at a hospital or at a dispensary or at a chemist outlet, it is coming through them. So even if somebody, before it comes to us and somebody does a quality check and raises a red flag saying that, what I've received is probably near expiry, they are the ones who should be taking care of it beforehand and making sure they provide only the best of the stuff for the people and to the people.
So you mentioned two things while we were discussing. One is that you said that the fourth pillar is the influencer. So how
Right.
are you building that influencer chain? And number two, you spoke a lot about the technology front. So there are a lot of disruptions which we see in the country which is coming, and especially where rural relies more on jugaad.
Correct.
So a lot of this thing is that they believe that there's a treatment for everything with various these things. So how do you ensure that the right healthcare is provided to the rural people?
Uh, Very aptly mentioned. So I'll kind of briefly touch upon the influencer part first, and then I will come to the technology part. So influencers are somebody, and why I keep strongly speaking about the influencers all the time is, and why it is so very critically important. Apart from everything else, the country, uh, I mean, we normally use a say when we pass off days, we say that, we are getting older. But for India, there's something we have to say very differently. We have
Mhm.
to say that the country is getting younger.
Yeah.
And in another about 7 to 8 years' time, we will be actually tagged as a young country, where youth will be the mainstay of our population. 65% and above population will be the youth alone.
Mm.
Which also means, along with that youthfulness and along with that energy, also comes a lot of responsibility.
Sure.
Decisions which are being taken today by people at 40, 45, or 50 will be taken by a set of people who would be 25, 30, 35.
True.
So you might say it's like, good in one way, and there would be slight reasons to worry at the same point of time. But then that worry can be eradicated if we start working on those influencer level activities right now. Now, these influencers are not only a particular stereotyped person who influences a particular community or influences a particular region. This is a apolitical influencing. Here I'm talking about anybody and everybody who is valued,
Mm.
probably within a village level, sarpanch level, at a district level, at a block level also. He or she can be a teacher, he or she can be a doctor, he or she can be a bank employee, she can be an insurance provider, he or she can be a sports person, but anybody and everybody who is looked up to. And there has to be a connect program for each one of them to bring them together, because at any given point of time, whatever you say and whatever I say to our families, and whatever you say and whatever I say to probably a group of young students, will be very different. Our families probably look up to us because they know us and they get influenced by us. The students would only believe in what they see. So deeds and proven deeds and people who have done that, they should take up the responsibility beyond that. And they don't need to talk about the fact that, you have to send this set of people to some one place. No, it's about just increasing that awareness amongst themselves. And when you also spoke of the fact that a lot of jugaad level aspects of the rural, which is true, indeed. But I'll give you an example which is as close as today morning itself.
Okay.
While I was driven in at my work by my driver, he raised in a point today. He asked me that, sir, my wife, before the COVID part, she had traveled to Bihar, and she was there to attend a marriage function. Some skin disruptions came across while she was getting treated in the parlor here, and now she has skin rashes, and a lot of difficulty around with her. So how do I handle that? And even if I handle that, I've taken her to at least 5 to 6 doctors in and around Siwan, the place where he stays in Bihar. And I'm able to find somebody give her a proper discourse of what to do. Now the problem is, uh, sad but true, but this fraternity, at least on the individual levels, believes in repetitions of a client. So herein comes in that main play, wherein we need to have very strong consultations and consultations which are unbiased, right? Telemedicine and technology can bridge the gap in a big way, by which we don't mean to say that we don't need the local subscribers, the local doctors. We definitely need them. We want to work with them. But then there are things, there are situations which arises which needs a expert intervention. And today, if you get probably Ajay yourself expert suggestion sitting back at your home instead of walking down 5 to 10 kilometers or driving down 5 to 10 kilometers to attend and go to a hospital or to a clinic, I'm sure everybody would prefer that. So technology helps bridge in that gap. And today, if somebody can have a Facebook in their phone and a WhatsApp, which is almost a must go for the generation, to have a health app is not something which is too much of a problem, I'm sure.
But are the people adopting to the health apps?
Well, there have been quite a few cases where the way it has been played out makes the appeal in the different way. So, for example, uh, you know, there's a very tricky situation which we live in this world. As we grow adults, we want to be children, and the children want to become adults. So psychologically, the mindset has drifted in both the sections. Now, if you look at it, adult walks on a very different psychology, and the psychology is called "what is in it there for me," right? Unless the adult is given that wimp in him, the adult would not respond or receive anything which is you are providing for. So I'll give a quite an interesting example of an app called CureFit, right? So if you look at CureFit today, CureFit initially started off as a health app which has to do with gyms, gymnasiums, products. Then from gyms, it came to health drinks, health stuff, healthy living. From healthy living, it went up to healthy cooking, healthy fooding habits. And now, then slowly and gradually, now it has brought in health consultations. Now it has gotten yoga trainers. Now it has gotten doctors. Now it is getting to the serious mainstream. But the initial of the funnel was very widespread. So you have to keep your funnel very widespread. If I keep my funnel like this and allow somebody to come in, I am already restricting a bunch of inflows. I have to keep my funnel outward. You want food, you want happiness, you want health, you want biceps, you want whatever you need, And coming back to health and biceps today, it might be seen that the gymnasiums are and the gym parlors and the body development parlors are actually mushrooming in the urbans. But let me tell you, way back, even before the urban has seen their first bodybuilding parlor, they were in abundance in the rural markets. The presence of akhadas, the presence of local gyms at the rural level was far more than what it used to be in the urban sector. The only thing is that we need to ignite those points and bring the funnel in, utilize the influencers to help people move towards the funnel, and then move them towards the direction with the help of the government, along with the distribution network of the pharma local pharmacy. And then these individual private companies will build up their competency to take them forward and build up a healthy and a strong nation. Our economy can never be great if people suffer.
So, Saugat, in this, especially communication has been a very big challenge. When we talk a communication which has to happen in urban areas, the communication vis-a-vis which has to happen in the rural areas, you have 27 major languages, more than 1,000 various dialects, and also how do you ensure that there is a right communication reaching to the right people?
Very rightly pointed, and in fact, while language still remains one area where communication from place to place will disintegrate, but then thanks to the digital influx and the uses of digital devices and digital products, across the country, there isn't much of gap remaining between the way somebody would look into a particular advertisement or a communication at a metro to somebody who would be sitting at a tier 3 market. Because end of the day, say for example, if the prime ministers for both are the same, if the country for both is the same, right? The aspirations for both are the same. Now what happens is that the aspiration vis-a-vis the reality. Suppose if you have seen a pizza, somebody might need to travel 40 kilometers to get his pizza, and somebody might get it in the next 4 kilometers he has traveled. Or probably somebody might get it in about 30 minutes sitting back at home. That's the difference, right? So difference lies in the execution of that more than the aspiration level of that. That's one. Two, regional dialects and regional plays do play a very major significance. And from a rural communication part is concerned, this is so very critical that apart from the interstates, for example, which speak different dialects, if you go into a rural setup, even within a state, there will be furthermore sub-dialects. So it's very critical sub-branching. So a rural communication has to deal, once again, very importantly, it has to involve that local level influencer and the local level spokesperson. Reason because whatever you advertise, somebody might endorse or somebody might speak out for that. Suppose if today, even if I go from a digital point of view, and if I say that today I am promoting a X number of messages from my own segment, targeted to a rural sector, the impact which it will create, despite of ourselves being a $1 billion brand, the impact which will create if somebody at the local level, the village sarpanch, if he promotes that within his group of people through WhatsApp, it will create a very different kind of an impact. And they will go by the fact that, we are believing in him. So that believability of whatever you are saying becomes very strong when it goes to rural communication level. Two, a rural communication has a lot of, we say that we love content, very truly we love content. But if you really look at somebody's practice unnoticed, and if you see somebody at a metro, probably at an urban life sector, a lifestyle way, going through a video, we have an impatience to skip 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay, I've heard this, I understood this, understood this. And we go to the end of it, right? But your content is truly valued and watched when it's somebody at the rural level. They don't skip. They listen to every word which you say. And therefore, that content is of more importance there than what is of importance at the urban level. So therefore, it's very important to design that content in their relatable situational understandings, to make it the content a part of their lives. So the moment they think it's a part of their life, their own ramification towards accepting that content becomes very.
So importantly, you have to have different communication at different places.
Absolutely.
One universal message, and then okay. So Sougat, you have spent a lot of time working in various sectors, right from FMCG to pharma to now with healthcare, telecom, or durables. So how have been your strategy? I mean, how have you been building strategies for these various organizations you have been part of, and what is the kind of critical decision making you do at your level?
See, it will be very difficult to kind of hold this thought between one or two or three yardsticks. That this has been the three benchmarks of my strategy, right? Because strategies which been blessed with, I would say, or had got the opportunity to create, have been more situational rather than strategies which have been only thought through, right? Because quite, for example, if you launch a product X, and if I would have launched the same product about a year back, for the same product with the same USP, my strategies are very different. But every point of time is a different situation which we are prevailing. Now it's the COVID, sometimes it's the heat, sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's the economy, sometimes it's somebody else, sometimes it's cross-border, sometimes it's internally. There's something or the other happening at every point of time. The strategy is all about making the communication, once again, relatable at that present course. Two, to build up a sustainability from that present course towards the future. And three, something which will grow with the individual irrespective of his or her age bracket and demography. So when you think of all three things, at the same time, I always, I would say, merge these three things with three other overlays. One, the organization I am in, the resource I have that point of time,
Very important.
and the scalability I can go through, right? So while my wish list on both the two dimensions can be X, but if I merge both these things through, I come to something which is called a reality. Now, there have been people who say that, I mean, I love optimists and I respect pessimists, but I truly admire the ones who are the pragmatic realists because they make the difference in today's date, right? So we being professionals across in our journeys, the more realistic we are, and the more I try, there's two things I keep trying. In fact, as an human individual, I would say, I try to be as much as the consumer myself, and that's something I've always tried doing across organizations.
Very,
Right?
very important. Yes.
And I try to I try to take away all my hats I'm wearing, and I try to be as much and as close to a consumer myself. And two, the first thing which I do is I list down as many problems as I can that I'm facing with the product or the service or the organization. Because if my campaign or if my strategy can handle these two, rest is almost a cakewalk. So across organizations, I would say, and seeing myself being placed across various industries, uh, I've looked into the same consumer from the eyes of a consumer durable manufacturer. I've looked into the same consumer from the eyes of a OTC business. I've looked into the same consumer from the eyes of a FMC provider, FMCG business. I've looked into the same consumer from the eyes of a telecom business. And I look into the same consumer from the eyes of a healthcare business. The good part is I have seen so many businesses developing in a different way. And when I look at so many consumers reacting to different businesses in different way, I think a great or a good marketeer is somebody who is very good in understanding consumer insights. Because if you have done that, and if you have simplified your communication to the consumer to make it rememberable, relatable, and recallable, your job is done.
But across these durables, FMCG, which is one sector which you feel that has given you opportunity to see the entire spectrum? Because something is driven by data, somebody is driven by consumer behavior, something is the. But what is one single industry which you give you the maximum amount of insights?
Well, not because I today have been a part of Apollo family, but I can tell it you more because even I had a healthcare stint prior to Apollo when I was heading the sales and marketing for Nehati Healthcare. But I'm of a strong opinion today that healthcare as an industry really gives you an insight of all of the other industries put down together. That's one. And the second industry is the retail industry because healthcare is the output of what you have taken in, and retail is the input of what you have given, right? So of all the good things which you have consumed, eaten, worn, so ultimately it gets tested out how good or bad it was for you when you come to a healthcare industry. And to make sure that whatever you have consumed is available, whether it's good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, irrespective, is the retail industry. So these two industries, if and when they survive in tandem and survive in well balanced nature, all other industries function in a very refined manner.
And so, so what do you see would be the future of healthcare industry in coming times?
Well, if I tell you today that in the times to come, I don't know how long that would be. You would never need to go to a hospital, and the hospital will be in your hand. I guess that will be a too far-fetched statement to say. But
Yes.
today, we already have things like medical devices which are being coming into the country, which
Okay.
are being sold at large.
Mm.
We are getting into the level 2 of medical devices, where those devices now are just not getting shipped from one country to brought in here and sold. They are now getting certified and scaled by NABL. We have also started something like POCT, is the point of care testing, where a customer himself can do a bunch of tests by their own sitting at their house. And with that, you have doctors who are starting to do telemedicine services to you. So if you go to a doctor would say that you will do this set of tests and come back, right? Because then it will diagnose better. So now you have the test done, you have the doctor available. Now the only thing for which you would ever need to visit a hospital is when you would need some interventions to happen in a different way altogether. So if you look at healthcare in that way, yeah, I'll be very happy to say that healthcare would actually be a part of every household in the times to come.
Yes.
And the beginning of it has already begun. And
Okay.
there are not many stakeholders, both at the central government level and also at the state level across, who have been working tirelessly to make that happen. Yes, to ensure that all of it happens, we need a very strong and a very skilled force of people who will be able to train people to do that. So that's how probably I would see it.
We have always been at the rural talks have been very very keen in understanding, listening to a lot of strategies or some great case studies or something that has really make impact in the society, something that has worked and it's continuing to work and it's continuing to give results. So you work with durables, FMCG, various sectors and all. So could you just tell us one or two stories which you developed, how you built up the entire scenario for it and how it went through?
Sure. I mean, I'll give you a because healthcare is the mainstay of the business which I'm in, and I will give you a very interesting healthcare case study which we have been through. Uh, so, in one of my prior assignments, when working with a healthcare unit, our key objective was to set up healthcare infrastructure in the tier 2 and the tier 3 markets of the country,
Hmm.
primarily. Right. Because obviously we saw that the urban and the tier 1 markets were getting flooded or populated more with the healthcare facilities, but then the tier 2 and the tier 3 always remains a challenge. So while on one hand we were working upon setting up the institute and the hospital, uh, the making of it, the strategizing of it, the people getting doctors, convincing them to kind of move their location from the metros and come and start living at a tier 2 place and a tier 3 place and start working on with the healthcare business, with the healthcare setup. So while we were doing all of it, the one of the key points which came up in one of the discussions which I was having with the senior management there, and that is, what is the number we are looking at, with respect to our occupancies. Now, for the first 4 5 months, when we were doing a lot of good soft talks, communicative level communications with the people around, hospital coming up, coming soon, so many specialties, so many super specialties, all that was good. But when it translated down to the revenue, and that how what the hospital is all about the occupancy level, obviously all the antennas went up, right? So there are conventional methods by which a hospital occupancy normally happens. You reach out to the local doctors out there, the doctors refer patients back to you, you reach out to various other mainstreams of patient referral basis systems, and the hospital starts building upon your occupancy. Then you have your own OPDs. The OPDs also generate those amount of people, and whomsoever we have been observed or identified with some critical problems, then if the need arises, they get admitted and whatever that. But I thought that why not make something happen different this time, right? Why do we need to fall back upon the local doctors to increase our own referral feedback system? Because referral feedback system, you know as it has its own merits and demerits both at the same point of time. I'm not going in in details on the demerits part. I'm sure people, me being a consumer too, or probably everybody who has been a consumer of that system, we all know what the demerits are otherwise. So when I thought of doing so, or doing such a challenging thing, obviously the point was, I mean, nobody has done that before, right? It was never tried that you have a hospital set up without having a referral-based mechanism put in place. So I said, why do we need referral-based mechanisms? I will go and get patients. So when I go and get patients, I started out doing outreach health camps.
Okay.
I created a team of people, and not one, multiple teams of people. The teams of people were designed with two doctors, four nurses, four administrative staff, a vehicle, which had primarily the initial tertiary tests which one needs to be done. Those were all equipped with. And, and since I came from a very strong FMCG and a OTC culture, and I've understood the sales and distribution very well, so I could map, plan, replan the beats, daily movements, just like the way it happens in the sales and distribution industry in a conventional system. I could do that in the healthcare system. So when the doctors and the teams were also moved in a particular day, visits once a week or twice a week, depending upon the need, and so on and so forth. At times fortnightly, at times weekly, and in particular places at times on a bi-weekly basis system. While we started doing that, what came across to us was some phenomenal results, right? There were people who used to come across and attend the health camp. We used to have about a captive patient base of about 250 to 300 odd patients a day, right? And that was a substantial number. And out of the 250, we almost had quite a few cases which should have been or need have been treated to the hospitals. And we were communicating with them with the point that within a few months the hospital will be ready, and we will have our patient base soon, right? We can move them over. We also identified a few very critical cases which were almost requiring intervention then and there, which we had moved to certain other partner institutes, right? Because that was what the identification, because health at the same time is the first priority. So while we were doing all this, two things also came out. So suddenly we had, and at the same time, in order to kind of also build up a database, in the times to come, I started some very harmless question answer sessions within those health camps. And the question and answers, apart from the uh, physical and the identification details, the questions led to what kind of food habits, what you like, what you dislike, family food habits, stove, kind of stove, cooking stove, oil stove, age of marriage, date of marriage, number of children, going into the past family, how many children your father, grandfathers had, brothers, what age of marriage, how many years since marriage you have the children, what kind of problems come in. So a lot of systemized structures, and the questions all the time got better as we.
Yes.
It was kind of, I would say, the human version of AI is what was created at that point of time. And the more we questioned, the more refined we got, the more questions brought in more appropriate questions. And we kept doing this process. And then a stage came when the hospital was almost ready. And we came to figure out that, we almost have a patient base, which we know can keep our hospital occupancy up 80% and above for the initial 4 to 5 months time.
Okay.
And that was a wonderful thing to do, right? We never had to do anything. We just had to go to a particular place, get the patients, put them in a vehicle or probably in an ambulance, bring them to the hospital, increase the occupancy. So it was a wonderful initiative which led to one thing or the other. But then there was another challenge which came across. And the challenge was the money. Because these patients, they had the problems. They wanted to come to a hospital. They liked being treated at the level of doctors which they were being treated to, right? They felt that trust building up with the kind of communications which we had built up. But what got the disconnect was they didn't have the money to pay for those kind of processes for which they would have been got admitted for. And that's where the stage two came, because now they have come, or they are coming rather, I would say. We cannot stop them. We only have shown them that dream that, come to us, we will treat you, we will take care of you. there was a line which I have coined, which was called taking the treatment to the patient, right? So believing in that ideology, we have taken the treatment to the patient. And now we say that since you don't have money, we will not be able to admit you. That will be a wrong thing to do.
Yes.
So very quickly, I had to kind of come out with a solution for this, right? While there were others who were working out with certain amount of NGOs, tying up with certain bodies where probably funds would have come in or somebody would have come and helped across. So while that was all happening and we were getting initial lesser margin of success in conversions of people who were ready to help, I thought unless I do something very drastically different and something significantly important, this entire hard work which has happened, it will all go for a loss. So what I did was, instead of going out any further, I also observed something in particular areas, and that is, in those areas had a very strong presence of banks, micro branches, and these were nationalized and centralized banks, micro branches, right? And I visited quite a few of the branches, and obviously, apart from the decent level of whatever transactions and they were doing, there was not much of business happening from those branches. But then all these branches had been equipped with all kind of products otherwise the banks have to sell. And one of the products happened to be a medical insurance products. Now, thankfully, the nationalized bank sector has the lowest ever medical insurance premiums. So they charge about at a price point of 3,650 rupees. You can cover a husband, the spouse, or the man, the spouse, and two children with the cover of 4 odd lakhs of rupees,
Yes.
which was a decent amount, right?
Yes.
There was no problem with that. So I came back, I talked to the central bodies, I spoke to their national marketing heads here, and I showed them the story that, guys, if you want to sell your products, how good are you doing that? They had their own set of challenges, people, understanding, communication. Because what if I give you that need? What if I give you that crowd? And what if I give you that place? All you have to do is convert and sign, convert and sign, convert and sign. So they were like, fair enough, I mean, that's all that we need. We have the product, we have the services, we have everything. All we need is the consumers. And that too, consumers who actually need it then and there at that point of time. But my only condition was, we have to make sure that the process happens ASAP. We cannot sit on this for the next 6 months' time, right? We have to make sure that the process happens quickly, and also the policy holders gets their policy documents very quickly. So we define a time frame, and that's how we measure up. So we did that part. We put this banks in place. They bought the story. I had the insurance mechanism. Now all what I wanted was a very effective communication. As you spoke to me in one of the previous questions, you spoke of how effective communication, and we spoke at large of making that communication relatable to the particular market with the given situation and the kind of people who are handling it. So the kind of market which I was addressing that point of time, that market had a very huge influx of pulmonological diseases, heart, lungs, respiratory problems. And the market had a very strong presence of tobacco users, tobacco consumers, right? And that market happens to be one of the strongest tobacco markets in the country also at the same time. So I played out a very simple card, and my communication read, at the cost of 210 rupees,
Yes.
which is 2 tobacco packets, 2 pan masala or gudka packets, whatever you call that, a day, you can save the life of yourself, your children, and your wife.
Superb.
So then it was like, I consume 6 to 8 packets a day. If I don't consume 2 packets, I help them out with 4 lakhs of rupees.
Yes.
It was an immediate way of connecting and cross-connecting, right? And that's what they bought the story, right? And we had wonderful conversions happening. That's what the campaign ran. And the conversions were like immensely, we almost had a 80 to 85% people taking up medical insurance products then and there from the camps. So we had a setup at the camp itself. identified, test, checked. For the people pre-identified, we told them to come back and get the medical insurance done. Cost 2 pan masala pouches a day, right? And we'd never pinch their pockets, right? So, having said and done that, we brought this process into force and we continued for the next 18 months with a consistent volume of 85 plus percent plus occupancy in that unit. And we opened up 3 more units to facilitate more amount of crowds. We could not go beyond 85% because obviously there are other needs of other kinds of beds, other kind of, you cannot ascertain a value for all the needs put down together. So we put up 3 different units at the same point of time. We put up 5 more OPD centers in the surroundings. So that's how it happened. That was one interesting story I wanted to share with you.
That's really interesting. Probably what you did is you thought holistically, you built up the backward linkages and the front forward linkages together, built up a product, innovated the product accordingly, and that's how you actually got into the market. So overall, I understand. Is that the way you went through?
Absolutely, and as I also shared with you in the very beginning, think from a consumer perspective point of view. Think that you are a patient.
Yes.
Think that you have been identified. Now, once I know I've been identified, I know I have a problem. But if you tell me, give me 3,000 rupees from your pocket, or somebody who is probably a daily wage earner, I will think from where or whom should I borrow it from. But if I tell you, give me 2 pouches from the 10 which you are eating, you will not mind, you will share with me happily. So I converted that money with that pouch. And 2, I created something which was a win-win situation for everybody. The banks were happy to take up the extra effort. For the first time, the bank people, they came across one of the few directors who came and said that, I've never seen my team so aggressive in their lives. I mean, my marketing team was always so sitting back and obviously didn't have much of need to push their businesses. I mean, I see people running around doing umbrellas, scams, moving up, moving down, and the numbers which they reach probably in a year's time, they reach those kind of numbers in a month's time. So,
And
needless to say,
one most critical thing which you did in this entire chain while you were doing this is building up the data. That was the most I think one of the most strongest part which you addressed very, very well, and
you,
data kept on giving a lot of insights.
you nailed it.
Yes.
This is the data a lot of our clinical research programs got initiated.
Yes.
This is the data you would not believe. I'm not naming that company. They are into water softening basis products. You know, this is the data they realized. This is a market where water softeners is required big time. The data somebody's plant came up. So I mean, once again, data is something which I consider of extreme importance, provided we can read that data out.
Yes. So great. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, friends, for watching some interesting insights from Sougat Chatterjee. Rural marketing has been constantly been talking to market leaders who have excelled themselves in various fields. Friends, in case you have any questions pertaining to rural markets, please feel free to mail me, and our leadership council will be more than happy to answer those questions. And do not forget to share and subscribe. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye-bye.